Welcome to the Africa in Harlem video podcast live from the village of Harlem. I'm Issa. Today's guest is small business counselor Lawrence King, who works with the Small Business Development Center here at Columbia University in Harlem. You've helped a few businesses here in Harlem apply for the SBA loans. From what I understand, it was two main programs, the Paycheck Protection Program and the Emergency Disaster Loan. So how did it go?
For lack of a better term, they didn't apply enough money to the program, so they ran out of money sometime last week. In terms of success rate of some of the businesses that applied in Harlem, I don't have the numbers yet in terms of how many businesses in Harlem or in the region got funded. In terms of our clients, I only heard from about a handful that successfully that got their monies, but that doesn't mean that the ones that I didn't hear from didn't get any money. It's probably, either the queue is still long and still businesses are still waiting to hear in the processing. And two, the other component is that there's another round that they can apply for if some of those applicants didn't get through.
Can you tell us what were some of the challenges that you saw when helping these small businesses apply for these loans?
Particularly with one of the program, Payroll Protection Program, where you have to you deal directly with the lender as opposed to applying via SBA. Particularly with small businesses or Black or Hispanic-owned businesses. Sometimes we lack a relationship with traditional banks, unfortunately, because of redlining and because of kind of lack of appreciation for Black-owned businesses. As a result of that, there's been a frustration with some of the Black-owned businesses dealing with traditional banks. And so that's what we get when they come to the SBDC. We have links to some community banks that we kind of link them up with. And that's been probably the major problem. One of the difficulties in terms of Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs and small businesses is dealing with traditional banks and the relationship. Because we have that lack of we don't have that strong relationship with them, it makes it more difficult to receive financials during a crisis like this. When I mean traditional banks, I mean Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase. Those banks have traditionally not been the strongest supporters of Black and Hispanic-owned businesses in community, and that's historical. My advice to some of the Black and Hispanic-owned businesses is to seek out community-based banks, credit unions who are participating in the program.
Now that the money is gone, it seems like another round will be coming up. So how can we make sure that Black and brown people this time will not be left out?
The Congressional Black Caucus has been a big movement in terms of this new allocation, the new funding round, to have community-based banks, community CDFIs, community development, financial institutions play a stronger role in terms of allocating money via these SBA programs. As a result of it, because those are the banks that businesses, entrepreneurs of Black and Hispanic-owned business have a stronger relationship with. So I believe there'll be a significant amount of money be allocated specifically for those types of businesses. I haven't got a chance to look at the new bill in terms of how much has been allocated for that, but that would allay some of the problems or some of the issues around providing assistance to Black and Hispanic businesses. Continue to apply, I guess. Just continue to apply regardless of the frustrations. Just continue to look for other avenues of financing via the institutions, via some nonprofit institutions, other community development banks. The city is supposed to be coming up with a new program as well. But let's continue to kind of focus on the development of researching other opportunities.
One of the main issues is that Black and brown businesses don't have strong relationship with some of these big commercial banks. Mm-hmm. So that's how they were sort of left out of the first round of money dedicated to small businesses. Now, what you're suggesting is they should reach out to smaller banks, community banks, and try to build a relationship with them so that when the second round comes, they will be able to, they have a higher chance of getting something.
They'll have a higher chance of having a relationship with an institution that is that reflects their community, that's in their community. So a community bank or a credit union, I can think of Neighborhood Trust. That's a local one. It's up in Washington Heights. They have a relationship with the community. They have a strong relationship with the community, and they're familiar with entrepreneurs of color, working with them. And so, yes, they would have a stronger possibility of getting their projects application process, as well as making contact with someone familiar with the apply to the community and apply to their businesses.
So why do you think then they like to go to bigger banks that basically don't care about them?
So they may have an account with a Wells Fargo. Say you already have an existing account with them. And it may not be because they have gotten a loan from them. It may be because they had a relationship with them prior to, in terms of having a personal account. But even traditionally, even if they've gotten a loan through that particular larger financial institution, they're going to be, in my opinion, they're going to be the last in the queue that institution is going to deal with in terms of Black and brown business. They're going to be the last in the queue. They're going to be looking at those institutions are going to first look at those businesses that they have either have a large amount of money or that what they're familiar with. And unfortunately, through the difficulty of relationship with traditional banks with businesses of color, is that they're the last people to consider funding. They feel that they're a higher risk, and so because they feel that they're higher risk, then they're not going to. They're going to give our banks of businesses of color a harder way to go. Mm-hmm. So dealing with a kind of community-based business, community-based finance institution, one that's already in the community, or dealing with that's familiar with low income or business of communities of color, or communities where there are small businesses of color entrepreneurs. They're familiar with this, and so they're going to be willing to be more open and provide assistance to us.
Why are they considered high risk?
Sometimes it's based on where they're located in the community. Businesses of color are in communities where you might have low income, or are in communities where it's considered high risk economic development opportunities. And so businesses of color have been traditionally put in that category. And so that's what they're considered high risk. Even though they may not be, we've always been considered high risk. And that's basically because of redlining, again, racism is where, businesses of color are put in that category.
Would it help if there were maybe more Black and brown banks?
Yes, it would be, or it could be banks or institutions that are that reflect us in their terms of where they are in the community, or not-for-profit institutions that provide financing for primarily small businesses or businesses of in low-income communities, or that are targeted to Black and Hispanic communities.
Is there a place where we can find such a list?
That's a good question.
That's maybe something I should work on. Try to put together a list of friendly, I would say, institution for
Yeah, probably a good start would be, again,
financial institution for Black and brown businesses. And the other thing is, I do not understand why black and brown businesses keep doing business with these banks that don't help them when they need help.
right. Well, so I mean, the other thing is that, some of the larger institutions may have more, how should I say? I mean, you have a point. Yes, that's true. But some of these large institutions have more, they may have more assets, they may have more services and products that some of the smaller banks don't have. Some of the smaller banks or community-owned banks have. Access to capital, I mean, some of them, there's not enough ATMs, there's not enough branches. You have to go to a particular branch. That particular branch, some of the smaller businesses, to do business with them. So I mean, that's
convenience. You're talking about convenience.
So yeah, basically convenience. On the other end of that, though, is that those larger institutions are not treating them equal to the same way as they would be treated if they were going to some of these community-based banks or financial institutions. So some of the large institutions are dealing with you. There's an inherent racism, or kind of, you're categorized as a Black or brown business a certain way, some that lacks assets. Some of them are not willing to provide, even though you may not have certain assets, you may not have certain
guarantees?
Not guarantees, but certain qualities that larger white-owned businesses might have, or small white businesses. You're dealing with a trust factor that large institutions don't have with Black or brown businesses.
Mm-hmm. So I know that here in Harlem, at least, you have Carver Bank. You have Industrial Bank, who used to be City National.
Right.
So they here in the community, maybe more Black people need to know about them. I know that I started with a big commercial bank, business-wise. The minute I heard about this Black bank in 2018, I moved whatever I had to that Black bank, and I've been there since. I've never had the need yet to ask for a loan or anything, but I think that we have to invest in ourselves first before we ask other people to invest in ourselves. Going to a big commercial bank because it's convenient, but then that commercial bank will not lend you money when you need money is just a waste of time. You giving them your money, they making money with your money, and at the end of the day, you're the biggest loser.
That's part of the issue in terms of dealing with, dealing with some of the larger institutions that traditionally don't have a relationship with Black and brown businesses. We're not treated with the same respect or equally. So yes, you have a point there.
How can people get in touch with you guys to help them make sure that this time around they will not be left out?
So I would direct them to our website. Our website has a number, well, particularly there's a coronavirus relief. There's a link there that directs you to the different programs that are out there, and directs you to the SBA programs, loan programs, the PPP and the EIDL, Economic Impact Disaster Loan, and you can apply directly via the website. It'll take you directly to the application process for both of those programs. It's fairly straightforward, step by step. It tells you what the program's all about, the process. In addition to that, we have there's a link to the business to the banks that we are I won't say recommend, but the list of banks that that you can work with in terms of applying, particularly for the PPP program, payroll protection program. And a lot of those banks are community-based banks.
Can you tell us some of the documents maybe that these applications are asking for?
So some of the documentation they're going to be for is going to be for, a profit and loss statement. They're going to be looking to see if you filed your taxes. You're going to have to, there are forms to fill out so they can look at your taxes filed from 2018 and 2019. We're looking for that. We're going to look of kind of a list of liability and assets that you or the business has, maybe a cash flow projection. Those are primary documentation. Definitely, it's important to have some kind of profit and loss statement in terms of what revenue the business has made, as well as what some of the business expenses. You need to definitely have a relationship with either an accountant or someone to help you kind of put that paperwork together, those documentation together. If you're not working with an accountant, then you should make sure that you have your tax, most importantly, probably your tax information in terms of for tax for the business. They're going to be wanting to see what, if you're in payroll, in terms of what the income of the business and how you paid your, what were you, in terms of if you have staff, what were the salaries and what you paid your, staff. And if you are a independent contractor, they're going to want to see what your income is in terms of that would be your payroll. If you consider if you're a single business, it would be what your income is for the past year. You need to keep track of from January to March in terms of what your income was, what you paid yourself during that period of time. You would probably file that or have that information ready when you do your application. Those are kind of the primary information and documentation you need when you begin when you start filling out those applications. If you're filling out one of these applications for coronavirus relief, if you need any technical assistance in regards to starting your business, setting your business, or expanding your business, you should again put in Columbia Harlem SBDC, and our website will come up, and then there's a link there that says schedule an appointment, meet a counselor. And once you do that, you can set up the appointment to talk to one of us.
All that for free.
Yes. All that's for free. Thank you very much. Yes, everything is for free. We really want to make sure that the assistance that we provide, particularly in the Harlem, Upper Manhattan, Harlem area, that all the businesses can avail themselves to it. You should definitely come to the SBC, irrespective of if you need relief for your business and you're having difficulty trying to fill out those applications. We can definitely help you with that. But in terms of if you're looking to, expand your business and develop your business even further, we can help you with that, to discuss it. Now's the time in this kind of slow period or business activity. Now's the time to think about how you can pivot to the changing market that's going to be out there after now and even as things change. And so we encourage you to kind of think about, what you need to do to adapt to the new environment that's going to be out there. And we can help you with that at the SBDC.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for taking the time to be with us. I hope that you're going to have a flood of businesses who will knock at your door and ask for help, and hopefully many of them will be able to get this loan, this second round of loan.
Yes, I hope so too. I was just checking the newspaper there, so they haven't yet finalized the bill yet. They're still kind of debating it, but yes, hopefully, with this new second round, they'll make it available. More money is available, as well as more opportunities to work with some of the smaller community banks. So businesses of Black and brown business can have an access to this fund.